but you should probably bake a cake. Bake a cake and blow out some candles for President Nelson. Mornings are better with a warm beverage, even for Latter-day Saints. Meet Postum, the ideal coffee alternative and proud sponsor of This Week in Mormons podcast. Spotted on the coffee aisle at Smith's Grocery or at your local nearby store. Can't locate it? No worries. Order it at postum.com. Explore delicious recipes to tailor your Postum experience. Start your day off right with Postum.
To This Week in Mormons, the Twin Sisters edition, with your hosts, Ariane Smith
and Tiffany Hales.
We're back again. It was only 2 weeks ago.
I know.
This is so fun.
I know, but with our schedule, I can't remember if you couldn't. You must not have been able to record at the end of the month, or I think maybe the taffy guest I had on. I have a guest. You know what? Yeah, I think it was her that she couldn't record this week, but she can record at the end of the month. So
I'm back so soon.
You're back so soon. It is
fun to be back.
Very, very fun.
We get to follow up on a lot of fun stories.
I know, because then we won't be back again as sisters till September when we go to California.
Oh,
we should tease our September episode.
We're pulling in our third sister again. If you've been around here a while, you know that we like to have her come on with us whenever we're together. So we're going to go see her in September.
Yes.
And of course, the first thing we asked, besides can we come see you, was, oh, you want to podcast with us?
So we're taking the show on the road in September. I'll be bringing the equipment.
That will be super fun.
That will be super fun.
Okay.
All right. Well, tell me what's been going on in your life this week.
Okay. This week is our last full week of summer for my kids. And it was squeezed in one last church camp. And that was FSY for my oldest daughter.
Okay.
My youngest one did it locally. My oldest one, and I have a story to tell.
Oh gosh.
So my oldest daughter wanted to go to FSY in Provo because she had a best friend here.
Okay.
And they wanted to go together, and none of the local weeks here worked for them.
Okay.
So they said, we want to go to Provo. So they went to Provo. They drove themselves down. This was a big thing.
Oh, I didn't realize they drove themselves down.
They did.
In your daughter's car or the friend's car?
Oh, no. My daughter's car cannot leave this state.
Gosh.
It could barely go on the freeway.
So it was the friend's car.
The friend's car. So the moms discussed. We decided they were ready. They could do this. So they drove down in the friend's car. We said they'll be fine if they're together, and as long as they can make it between Salt Lake City and Provo, which is the most dangerous stretch.
Tell me about it.
Of interstate in all the land.
2 weeks ago, I was down there picking my daughter up from her crash in Utah.
So they drove themselves down, but they won't let you park your car on campus.
Okay.
So the friend has grandparents that live in Draper, and the grandparents then took them to campus, and they left the car at the grandparents.
Oh, so they really only had to get from basically
they really
Ogden to Draper.
Had to get to Draper, which is also dangerous.
That is dangerous because my daughter's accident was in Farmington.
So here is where the funniness came in.
Okay. So you think you're off the hook for having to drive down there?
Yes. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
You're like the beauty of older teenagers.
I know, they drove themselves down. This is their last ever FSY. She's going to be a senior in high school next year. So then on Tuesday morning, I get a phone call from a medical person at FSY. You never want to get a phone call from a medical person anywhere when your child is away from home.
How did it come up on your caller ID?
Well, it came up under my daughter's phone. And I was at the gym in the middle of a class.
Okay.
And normally I would not answer a call from my daughter in the gym in the middle of class. But I was like, why is she calling me? She's in the middle of FSY.
Okay.
This is unusual.
Yes.
So I answered it, and there was a medical person that was on her phone.
Okay, so when you answered it, were you a bit surprised then when you pick it up thinking it is your daughter?
I was like, hey! And she's like, oh, this is so-and-so from FSY Medical. I'm here with your daughter, and she has thrown up twice this morning. So we have a policy here at FSY that when you have like a contagious illness, you have to leave campus for 24 hours. And then if your symptoms, like if you have no symptoms, then you can come back.
Yeah.
I was like, you do know I'm in Idaho, right? She was like, yes, I am aware. You know, she told us you're from out of state. She's like, but that's our policy. She has to leave campus. They were like, do you know anybody here?
Never should you interfere with BYU policy. Hello, you are a graduate of Brigham Young University. The policy always trumps.
Right. So they're like, do you know anybody here that could come and get her? I was like, not really. Like, do you have any like relatives or family friends? And I'm like, not really. I'm like, I'm gonna need some time to problem solve this.
Plus,
like,
you're in the middle of gym class.
They're like, okay, that's totally fine. We understand you need some time. We're just gonna keep her isolated. Let us know.
Okay.
So I go back into my gym class and I'm trying to participate and I'm racking my brain. I'm like, okay, I have an old college roommate. Is she there? I haven't seen her in like 21 years. I'm just like racking my brain. And then I'm like, okay, cousins. We have a couple cousins like in the Salt Lake area.
Yes.
And then I'm like, oh, I think we have one cousin in Provo that I don't know very well. She's closer to your age.
Yeah, she is a bit closer to my age.
And then I'm going through people in my ward. I'm like, okay, what kids are at BYU right now in my ward? Oh, is so-and-so's daughter there? Maybe she'd be willing to go get her. And then I'm like, well, nobody wants like a throwing up person in their house that's potentially contagious. So then I'm like, maybe we just put her in a hotel, and then so I'm running through ideas.
Okay, you're trying to troubleshoot this.
Yes, trying to troubleshoot this. My daughter calls me back a little bit later. They'd stuck her back in her dorm room.
Okay.
And she's in tears. And she's like, I don't want to leave. And she's like, I don't think I'm going to throw up again. My children have notoriously weak stomachs.
They do. All you have to do is say throw up.
This is like,
give me a bag. I'll do it.
And sometimes they just do it in the morning randomly. Like I think
and then they're fine the rest of the day.
I think sometimes their stomachs get so empty. But she was feeling like she had a cold. Okay. So I don't know if it was related. Anyway, she's like, I really want to stay. I think I'm going to be fine, Mom. I really want to stay. I'm like, okay, well, just hang tight. I'm trying to figure this out. So I wait another hour or so, and I get the most brilliant idea on how to solve this problem. Because really, really what it comes down to is I'm starting to get very annoyed that like, why don't they just let her stay there for 24 hours?
Just isolate her in the dorm.
I know they have enough dorms. Like, I know.
And clearly they have enough medical staff.
Yeah. So I'm really just like, I am out of, this can't be the first person this has ever happened to.
Well, let me tell you.
Comes from out of state.
It is not, because if you hop on the Daily Universe and you read the police beat, because they still have the police beat.
Oh, they do.
I was trolling the Daily Universe this week for potential stories, and they had the police beat, not from this week, but from last week. It is full of medical stuff involving FSY.
Really?
So maybe your daughter makes the police beat.
Oh, I'm going to have to look at this next week.
I completely agree with you. You're not the first person this has happened to.
I know people come from all over to go to FSY in Provo. Like, it's kind of a destination FSY, right? So anyways, I had a brilliant idea. I'm like, I know how to resolve this without having to go all mama bear on the counselors and being like, why can you not just stick her in a room? What's wrong with you people? I came up with the most passive-aggressive way to solve this problem.
Oh, lay it on me.
Which, if you know me, I'm not a confrontational person.
You are not a confrontational
at all.
I sucked all the confrontational from our family.
So I'm working on that. I go to counseling. I'm working on this. My counselor probably would not be proud of the way I did this. Because she probably would have wanted me to be more direct. Okay. But I got my daughter back on the phone. And
you know what? Sometimes though, it's just good to be passive aggressive if you solve the problem.
Oh, it solved the problem. Nobody got hurt feelings. It was great. So I got her back on the phone. I checked back in. This is like an hour or two later.
Okay. I'm
like, okay, how are you feeling now? She's like, I'm actually feeling better. I think I'm gonna be fine, Mom. I'm like, okay. So who are they bugging you? Are they wanting you out?
Yeah.
And she's like, no. She's like, I'm on a text thread with 2 medical people and my counselor. I said, brilliant. Okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to text them. I want you to tell them you're feeling better, because she was.
Yes.
And then I said, I want you to tell them your mom is trying to figure this out. And then I want you to tell them that your mom wants to know if you are allowed to take an Uber to a hotel room for the night. Because that was a thought that crossed my mind, not knowing anybody in Provo. But I immediately shut it down because I thought they're not going to let her do that. You have to physically check a person out of FSY. Yes. They're not letting teenagers loose in the wild.
They're not going to let the Uber driver check her out.
So I purposefully had her send this thinking, if they realize how desperate we are, that we want to Uber her to a hotel, which they will never allow, they're going to say she can stay here. And you know what they did? They went all the way up to the admin and they said, they got back to her and they said, we're not comfortable with you spending a night alone in a hotel room. So we're just going to have you isolate there in your room. We might move your roommate out. Since I was like, oh my gosh, that was so easy.
Boom.
Why did
Problem solved.
Why did we not do that in the first place? But it worked. So
okay, that is freaking hilarious. I am giving you mad props for your problem solving without ruffling any feathers.
I know, which was great. Because in the meantime, I had like feelers out to a cousin that that does live in Provo that I don't know very well. Yeah. And it wouldn't have worked anyway. Yeah. She had a family in town for a wedding. Yeah. The last thing she needed was
your sick daughter.
Sick kid showing up on her doorstep.
Exactly.
So anyways, it worked out. She stayed the rest of the week. She's coming home tomorrow.
Perfect.
And now it will be interesting to see next year. Don't blame me, people, if this happens. But I'm like, next year when they have FSY, are they going to put a new policy in the handbook of FSY that says if you go to an FSY out of town, you must have a local contact in that town? I don't know.
I am going to put hard money on the table, knowing BYU and knowing the church. I'm going to put hard money on the table that is the new policy for FSY.
They might be like, you need an emergency contact in the town that you are in. Exactly. I don't know. Don't get mad at me if that happens, people.
Oh, that will be interesting.
But she did say that they were very busy. Like over the next 24 hours, they just kept her in the dorm room and brought her meals, kept her isolated. And I kept asking her, like, are they checking in? She's like, no, Mom, they're not checking in on me. She said, they just like hand me my meal and they leave. She's like, I think they're really busy because they kept talking about other people that they were dealing with.
Oh dear.
Like when she was in with them, I was like, okay, that also probably worked to our advantage.
Exactly.
They had bigger problems. I don't know what they were. I'll have to read Police Beat next week.
Yes, go read Police Beat, because let me tell you, 90% of Police Beat right now is all about FSY kids and what they are doing. So if you want to know what's going on at BYU,
are they being naughty?
Some are being naughty, and some are having lots of medical issues.
Okay, that was my question, because did I tell you when my other daughter went to FSY here at BSU, they would not let those children go anywhere on campus.
Oh.
Like during their free time, they had to stay in the dorms with their counselor or out on the grass outside the dorms with their counselor. They weren't allowed to go like to the student union. They were not allowed to go anywhere. They weren't allowed to go to the bathroom by themselves.
Oh, dang.
And at BYU...
Is it less restrictive there?
Oh, yeah. And my kids went to University of Idaho 2 years ago. And when it's free time, they were totally free to roam campus.
And you know what? Because when my daughter went up to University of Idaho, they were free to roam campus.
Yeah, they were totally free. So I think it's a BSU. My running theory is BSU is like for liability purposes.
We don't want your problem children.
But this is the hilarious thing. When my daughter was there, 14 boys went in the elevator of the dorms during free time because they were bored and jumped. And
now, are you talking at BSU?
At BSU.
At BSU.
At BSU, where they don't let you do anything.
So 14 boys.
During your free time, you have to stay in the dorms.
In the elevator.
14 boys who were bored in the elevator jumped. Fire department had to come and rescue them because the elevator got they were trapped in there for like 45 minutes. And my daughter was texting me, Mom, the fire trucks are here. So I was like, you see, it backfires. Like you can have them roaming around your campus or you can have them stuck in the dorms. They're still going to cause problems because they are teenage boys and girls. Girls can cause problems too.
Oh my gosh. I can't. You are killing me tonight. You are so killing me tonight.
So, I don't know. FSY. The tales of FSY.
The tales of FSY. Okay. Well, on that note, I'm going to skip what I was going to talk about in the intro because we are 13 minutes into the show with the tales of FSY.
It took up so much time with the tales of FSY.
Honestly, I can't top that. I can't even come close. I'm not even in the same universe.
But you do have an announcement, and that's that you got released from your calling.
I did get released from my calling.
Of many, many years.
Of 3.5 years. I was the first counselor in the Relief Society presidency. I was in charge of activities. Now ask me what my new calling is.
Something with activity?
Yeah. I'm now the Relief Society activity coordinator.
So basically you just kept your calling.
I kept my calling.
With a new title.
With a new title, and I have fewer meetings.
Fewer meetings. Well, that's the bonus.
Yeah, that's the bonus right there. In fact, the Sunday after I got released, my boss came in. He's like, "How was your weekend?" And he's a bishop, and I was telling him, and I said, "Oh, I got released." He's like, "Oh, congratulations!" I said, "Guess what my new calling is?" And I told him, and he just started laughing. He's like, "So you really didn't get released?" And I'm like, "No, not really."
You're too good. This is what happens when you're too good at your job.
There you go. All right.
Okay.
Well, we have our sponsor, which is Postum.
Oh, yeah.
And you have made us a delicious treat tonight.
We've been saying we were going to do this forever.
I'm holding this up for those of you who are watching us on YouTube. It is a little cake with chocolate frosting. Ariane, talk about the cake.
This is Postum cake. You had been telling me there's a Postum cake recipe out in the universe. So I decided, after you have contributed many a Postum drink, I decided I was going to make the Postum cake. So I made it tonight.
So we're going to try the Postum cake.
It said
what does it have in it?
It recommended chocolate frosting. It just is like regular cake, like flour, sugar, butter, eggs. But then like a couple tablespoons of Postum.
Did you use regular Postum or chocolate Postum?
Regular.
Okay.
The recipe called for regular. I want to keep it traditional.
Okay.
So.
Tastes like cake.
It does.
It's like not bad.
The frosting is chocolate, but the cake itself is not chocolate.
Yeah.
The cake itself almost has like a muffin kind of a feel, don't you think?
It does.
Like a breakfasty cake.
It does. Like a breakfasty cake. Mm-hmm. But it's moist and it's really good. So anyway, fun. Thank you, Postum. And Postum, thank you for being our sponsor. And Ariane, thank you for making us a Postum cake to try.
Sure.
All right.
Okay, first
start with our breaking news that came out this afternoon.
Yes, breaking news as of this afternoon. There will be an upcoming broadcast for President Nelson's 100th birthday. It will be on Monday, the 9th of September. Like a little FHE situation.
Yes.
Worldwide broadcast of his birthday celebration. This is not a huge surprise. They've done this before for other prophets as they have birthdays. So there we go.
Exactly.
Tune in.
You don't have to plan your family home evening on the 9th of September. The church has planned it for you.
But also it's very early in the evening.
It is. Well, they're releasing it at 4 p.m. I suppose you could watch it whenever.
I'm sure you can watch it whenever.
But you should probably bake a cake. Bake a cake and blow out some candles for President Nelson.
Bake a Postum cake. Okay, I have one more thing to say about President Nelson's birthday. I'm so happy for him. 100 is a huge milestone.
It is.
I just have to say, I'm very confused with the advertising campaign. And I'm confused because you are not seeing this.
No, I'm not seeing the advertising campaign.
Both have Instagram accounts.
Yes.
My Instagram account over the past probably week and a half has been completely flooded with advertisements for the church.
Really?
With the 99+1 hashtag.
Shut up. I have not seen that at all.
So we know that he gave this challenge. Like he said, all he wants for his birthday is us to find the one and give service to the one. So I kept seeing, like up in my Instagram stories, this ad for this hashtag, like find the one, use this hashtag 99+1. And I was like, oh gosh, I keep seeing it. It probably took about 4 or 5 times for it to register. And then it dawned on me, I was like, are they asking me to give service to someone and then post it on Instagram with a hashtag?
Okay.
That seems a little, I don't know.
Like bragging about your service.
Yeah, it seems a little
braggy.
It seems a little too much.
Okay.
So I clicked on the ad to like further read.
Oh, and now you're never going to get rid of the ads.
This is why I'm getting more and more.
Okay.
But at that point in time, I'd already been getting a lot.
Okay.
And so I clicked on it, and the story they were using in the ad was a little bit different. It was a person who was talking about how she was the one.
Oh, okay.
And so it was like, grab this hashtag and share about one time when you were the one. And so this girl had just shared how like she was alone in Relief Society and someone came and sat by her. 99+1 hashtag. So it wasn't so much like do your service, and then
it was about how you received service.
But it was about how you received service. So that was a little bit better.
I like that a little better.
It's a little better for me.
That's not so braggy.
It was, I don't know, it's just been interesting to see the ads flooding me with this hashtag, and I actually haven't seen that many. I don't think I've seen any actual real life people that I know use it, but I don't know. It's an interesting.
Okay.
It's an interesting aspect.
Here is going to be the real test. I don't know what you clicked on or what you were searching to get that to begin with. I have not seen that in either my Instagram or my Facebook feed, but I have my little phone right here tonight. So you know how your iPhone likes to spy on you?
Oh yeah.
We will see in the next 2 or 3 days.
You're going to get them.
After you and I have talked about this, if I'm going to start getting the ads, if Instagram is spying on our conversation.
You're going to get them for sure.
Okay.
Anyways, it's just, I don't know, it's just weird. It's a new era. I know we live in social media, but it's just a little bit odd to me to see the hashtag flying around and the ad for the hashtag. I mean, I guess it's good PR, right? I mean,
okay. All right. Well, let's move on. It is Olympics this week. This is the last week of the Olympics. We have 2 days left, and we have such major Olympic news this week. I have just been jonesing to get on the podcast and talk about the steeplechase.
It was a good race.
Oh, seriously, the best race I ever saw.
It was really good.
So let me give you a little background here. Of course, there were 2 steeplechasers from BYU that were being coached by Ed Eyestone. There was, of course, James Corrigan, and he is the one that they did the special race in Philadelphia to get him qualified. And then there was Kenneth Rooks, and we've talked about Kenneth Rooks extensively on the podcast. Now, neither one of them have a ton of experience. James Corrigan has only been steeplechasing for a year, and he is a sophomore at BYU. He's very young. The fact that he made the Olympics is just like crazy. And Kenneth Rooks has been steeplechasing for 3 years. In fact, Kenneth Rooks originally got into steeplechase because he wanted to be on the BYU traveling team, and he thought that was his best chance to get into the BYU traveling team was to do steeplechase.
Right.
And then they discovered he had kind of a natural ability for it.
And didn't I read that Kenneth Rooks, this was only his second international race?
This was
ever?
His second international race ever.
Amazing.
So last year he won the U.S. Track and Field Championships in steeplechase, which qualified him for the Worlds. He went to the Worlds. So that was his first international race. This is international race number 2. He had the 37th fastest time in the world. So there's 36 people faster ahead of him. And I think he was ranked like 500 and something in the world for steeplechase. So, I mean, this guy is a long shot. And both of them were going into the Olympics with a long shot. And we knew that. And David and I talked about this on the podcast, you know, that the chances of them medaling were probably not high. So, of course, with Paris being ahead of us and the times are all messed up, you know, it's really hard to kind of watch it live or anything. So I knew that they were doing qualifying rounds, I think Monday and Tuesday, if I recall correctly. And I looked at James Corrigan's time, and I looked at Kenneth Rooks' time. And I wasn't, you know, I had no belief that James Corrigan was, you know, really going to be able to make the finals. And I looked at Kenneth Rooks' time, and I was like, I don't know. That seems really slow. I don't know if he'll make the finals. And then I checked a couple of days later, and sure enough, he was in the finals. And so I was like, oh, that's cool. He's in the finals. Again, wasn't really concerned about his race because I was like, oh, he's not going to medal. So Thursday afternoon, I guess it was Wednesday afternoon. It was Wednesday.
Yeah, it was Wednesday.
It was Wednesday afternoon. So Wednesday afternoon, I was getting ready to go into an online meeting, and I knew this meeting was going to be a couple of hours. So I got up to go use the bathroom before I sat for my meeting. And I walked past the family room, and we, of course, have just had the TV on nonstop with the Olympics. And I saw that the steeplechase was on. I was like, oh, cool, steeplechase is on. They had 6 laps to go. So I was like, man, I'm not going to worry about it. So I go to the bathroom, come back, and then they're down to like 4 laps maybe. And so I thought, well, you know, I've got enough time before this meeting starts. I'm going to watch the race. Well, about that same time, my husband came home and my son was there. And so we start watching this race. And Kenneth Rooks is in the very back of the pack, and which is, you know, kind of where I thought he would be. And so then all of a sudden, about lap 3, with about, you know, 3 laps left to go, he starts to make a move, and he starts moving up, and he starts just knocking off runners right and left as he's moving past him. And these runners are all looking at him like, where'd that guy come from? Who's he? And so finally he gets up, and he's got about a lap to go. And by this time, he has moved himself up so far, he is leading the pack going into the last lap. And it's just hilarious because he keeps turning around, looking, going,
It's kind of like he didn't believe it. Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's almost like he was checking to see if they were coming for
yeah,
him.
exactly.
But also, there was like a little bit of disbelief.
Exactly. And so he just kicks it into high gear. And so by this time, we are screaming and hollering at my house. We're like, go, 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 go. We're screaming and hollering. And then, of course, the guy who won it, who was the defending Olympic champ, kicked it in and he was able to pass Rooks. So he ended first. Rooks fought for everything to stay for second. You could see him at the very end just giving everything he could. He was like, I'm getting that silver medal. And he gets the silver medal. And then he's just sitting there, and it's the funniest pictures of him. He's so bewildered. He's like, what just happened? It was kind of like he planned the race and he had the race in his head, but he never thought, what happens after I cross the finish line? Because he doesn't know where to go. He doesn't know what to do. He's just walking around in this daze. I don't know what I enjoyed more, the shock and awe of him getting the silver medal on his face or watching him win the race. It was
so fun
such
to watch.
An incredible
and
race.
I knew what was going to happen because it had been spoiled online before I watched it. But even knowing what was going to happen, when I sat down to watch it, I was like, how is he going to do this? Because he was so far in the back.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he's not going to get past those guys because they're such a pack.
They were running in a pack.
I do not understand.
And he had to maneuver around him.
I do not understand
how Tiffany had a good clothing sale.
I do not understand how they can physically do that without just all of them toppling over in a ball.
And especially because they're not just running, they're going over hurdles.
Yeah.
They're running in the water jump.
Yeah. Anyway, it was shocking.
It was shocking. But
it was really cool.
Very, very, very cool. So, of course, the Deseret News the next day had an incredible article on it, and they interviewed both Kenneth Rooks and they interviewed his coach, Ed Eyestone. And it was so interesting because Ed said, this was our plan. This was our plan going into the races. I told him, you hang back, you let them set the pace, and then you make your move. And so the race was running pretty fast. And so Ed Eyestone says, as these runners are running pretty fast, I'm thinking to myself, did I make a mistake in giving him this strategy? Am I holding this athlete back? He's questioning the plan. And then the plan just kind of seamlessly starts to transition in place. And there is such a great Instagram out there video of Ed Eyestone, and it's linked in this Deseret News article. There's such a great Instagram video of Ed Eyestone watching this race and watching Kenneth Rooks win it. And it is so, so, so cool. And what was interesting is, in addition to winning the race, he bested his personal time by 9 seconds, which is just like...
It's a huge jump.
That's a huge jump. And Ed Eyestone said, in training, when he was working out with him in training, that he felt that Rooks was capable of going 8 minutes and 6 seconds, which is exactly where he ended up in his final time, which was just crazy. And so, anyway, the article talks about that it was an extreme exercise in patience for Rooks. He just had to kind of sit back and wait.
That would be hard.
And wait for his moment.
Take a lot of faith.
And take a lot of faith and shoot his shot, when it was his time. And the other thing that I thought was interesting is he said, this is what Ed Eyestone said. I was worried that I might have held him back, but then he moved up and I thought, okay, this is why you have a plan and this is why you stick to the plan, which I thought I loved this because do you remember we covered the story when Kenneth Rooks fell at the national championship, national track and field. He fell really early on, but he had a plan. And the plan was, if I fall, I'm getting up. So he didn't have to fall and go, what am I going to do now? He got up. And I thought, what a great life lesson that is for all of us. You have a plan, you stick to the plan, especially if you have confirmation that that's the plan you're supposed to have. So I really like that. Ed Eyestone also thinks that Rooks can run even faster in the future. He says that's not the fastest he will run. If he doesn't have to go 4 wide to work his way around other runners, and if he runs the race that is rabbited, he can run faster. So,
and he's young, so
he's young.
Probably be back.
He's only 24, and so I expect in 2028, when the Summer Games are in LA, that we are going to see both Kenneth Rooks and James Corrigan from America competing for the steeplechase, and they're going to be even better than they are now. That is my hard money that I am putting on the table.
Oh, I hope so. They'll be fun to watch. So, Ed Eyestone has just been getting so much press because he's helped out these two, and then he's also helping out the marathoners. So there's just been a ton of articles.
Yes.
The Salt Lake Tribune had one, but the New York Times had one after this race this week. And this was an article in the New York Times. They went to Provo and interviewed him clearly before the Olympics. And it was just a really interesting interview about just how he's coached so many Olympians. Now, it may not seem like very many because he's sent 4 so far to the Olympics. He sent, in the steeplechase, or in the marathon. This article was particularly about the marathon. This article didn't talk about steeplechase. In the marathon, he sent Connor Mance and Clayton Young, who are there this year. Rory Linkletter, who is also there this year from Canada, went to BYU.
Yes.
He's not currently coached by Ed Eyestone, but he was at BYU. And then there was a guy, Jared Ward, that was in the 2016 Olympics. So basically, they did the statistics, and 37.5% of the U.S. marathoners who've competed in Rio, Tokyo, and now Paris have been under the tutelage of Ed Eyestone,
which is
at least at one point in time.
Crazy.
That's a pretty big percentage.
That's impressive. Yeah. Brother Eyestone, we're impressed.
Yes. So they gave a little bit of they said they couldn't get the interviewer said, I can't get a lot of info out of him because he doesn't like to brag. So they interviewed obviously his athletes, and they just talked about what a laid back coach he is, which you would expect the opposite. But the athletes that he's coached all just said he's very easygoing. He's very chill. Like, he doesn't overcoach you. He really lets you kind of make your plan, and then he supports you in your plan. But he is not one to be like, you should do this, you should do this. In fact, they said if there's one downside to him, that would be the one negative about his coaching. He said sometimes, they just want him to tell them what to do, and they'll say, well, what should I do?
And he gives them pros and cons and says, make a choice.
That they have to choose. Anyway, I thought this was really interesting in the interview. He is a former Olympian himself.
In the marathon.
In the marathon at age 27, he ran in Seoul. And I thought this was really interesting because he came in 29th place that year, and he said that he pushed himself early on to stay with the leaders, and he ran out of steam.
Yeah.
And then he was able to go back 4 years later in Barcelona, and he, moved up. I think he was 13th overall then. But I thought that was really interesting to hear that aspect in the way what he just told Kenneth Rooks to do. Like, don't use all your steam.
Exactly.
Clearly he has experience with this. And then he talked about how he coaches them in the marathon. He tells them that he wants them to be on autopilot for the first 20 miles, just a steady pace.
Yep.
And then the last 6 miles is when he tells them to go all out, and he says those are the 2 halves of a marathon.
Which is crazy. 20 miles and 6 miles, the 2 halves.
Anyway, it was a fun write-up on him, and it's fun to see him getting so much coverage, and national coverage too.
It really is. It really is. And speaking of which, the 2 marathoners, Clayton Young and Connor Mance, along with James Corrigan and Kenneth Rooks, all showed up for a fireside last Sunday in Paris. So they'd all come for the opening ceremonies. They participated in the opening ceremonies. And then Ed Eyestone hauled them off to Switzerland to go do some high altitude training in Switzerland. And the marathon course particularly has some pretty steep climbs and descents. And so he hauled them all off to Switzerland, and they trained in Switzerland for a few days. And then he hauled them down to Italy because he wanted them to train in the heat and humidity of Italy that would be similar to the heat and humidity of Paris. And then by Sunday, he's like, okay, you can go back to Paris. So they went back to Paris. They all went to church on Sunday in Paris. And James Corrigan has the cutest Instagram post about going to church in Paris.
Okay, he has a fun Instagram. We deep dived it right before this.
Right before we got on.
Follow him. He's fun.
We deep dived James Corrigan, Kenneth Rooks, Connor Mance, and Clayton Young. We deep dived all of their Instagrams. And all I will have to say is Clayton Young and Connor Mance are both mechanical engineering majors and graduates at BYU, and their personality on Instagram reflects that. Kenneth Rooks has a little more personality. He was a civil engineer. But James Corrigan, he has just the most fun persona on Instagram.
Yeah.
So you should go follow him. I don't know what his major is, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's not engineering because he doesn't have the personality for it.
Oh my gosh, you're going to offend so many engineers right
I
now.
am going to offend so many engineers, but that's okay because I'm a lawyer. I hear bad lawyer jokes all day long. So, Anyway, so all four of them show up at this fireside in Paris, which they ended up broadcasting it. I don't know if it's available for us or if it was just broadcast to the youth in Paris, but they all went to the fireside. They were able to kind of share their faith journey and spiritual messages with these kids right before they raced. And I thought, what more of a grounding experience than to go and share some spirituality and share your faith and just kind of refocus and realize, yes, the Olympics is a big deal, but there's a much bigger deal. So we have a whole article on that, and I would encourage you to go read that article and their messages. So
okay,
all right, okay, we again, we're running long. This is gonna be a supersized episode. What can I say?
There's a lot of Olympics,
so much Olympic stuff that I just cannot gloss over it. So we've already had the steeplechase with James Corrigan and Kenneth Rooks. What we have not had yet is the marathon. So the marathon, which Connor Mance and Clayton Young are in, starts at midnight our time tonight. So we are recording right now. It's almost 11 o'clock. So about an hour from now, if you wanted to go hop online and if you have Peacock and watch the marathon live, you can watch the marathon. So in theory, by the time you get up tomorrow morning, the results of the marathon will be in. But I wanted to acknowledge that marathon. And one thing I wanted to touch on just real briefly is we know how Ed Eyestone coached Kenneth Rooks and James Corrigan as far as the steeplechase. And so I thought, how is he coaching them for the marathon? The steeplechase is run inside a stadium. The marathon is 26 miles, usually with a course. And so I found an article from February from the Deseret News that talked about how he coached them for the Olympic trials. And it was completely fascinating. He had mapped out the entire course, and they had decided that there were certain places at the course, this is when you'll get your water. This is when you'll get gel energy stuff. This is when you'll get that. They had volunteers on the course that were watching them and timing them. He had a bike that he rented, and he was biking the course following them. I'm following them, and I'm like, that's allowed? I mean, I don't know if it's going to be allowed in Paris, but the thing that he talked about more than anything else, this was his strategy for them at the Olympic trials, is he said, chill, cover, close. And what he meant by chill is he said, you're going to hang back and just chill at the beginning of the race. Cover means when everybody starts to step up the pace, you're going to cover that and you're going to step up the pace. And close means at the end, you are going to give it all that you have. And so I suspect he's going to have probably a similar take on how he wants them to do the marathon in Paris. What I thought was really cool is the article talked about when he woke up on the day of the Olympic trials, because again, he's got two guys in the Olympic trials and he realizes probably at least one of them is going to get through. I might get two. And how amazing is that to send two Olympic qualifiers that are my guys that I train? So he says he woke up on the day of the Olympic trials. He was trying to sleep. He took a picture on his phone of the sunrise and he sent it to Connor and Clayton. And he said, it is a beautiful sunrise right now. It's going to be an awesome day. You've done the work. Now go enjoy the experience. Be present today. Run the mile you are in and the results will take care of themselves. I absolutely loved that. I thought, what better advice for a coach to give? There's nothing more you can do on the day of the race than to just say, you're here and you're having this incredible experience, so enjoy it. Because how often are we having these incredible experiences and we're not taking the moment to really pause and contemplate it and just enjoy it? So anyway, I am a big Ed Eyestone fan.
I know, he seems like quite the guy.
He really does. I I know Lavelle Edwards has a stadium named after him. I can't help but think maybe the track. I don't know if the track and field stadium is named after anybody, but I see a future Ed Eyestone track and field stadium at BYU.
That could be pretty cool.
Okay.
Last Olympic story.
Yes.
Not really a story, just a quick mention.
We should put this in Mormons behaving badly.
The Michaela Skinner / Simone Biles feud lingers longer. So Michaela Skinner got online this week and like pleaded in a video with Simone Biles to like call off the dogs because she is getting, I guess, death threats, hate mail, which is unfortunate.
Yes.
But also like Simone has no control over that. People on the internet are crazy.
Well, exactly. And Simone didn't say go after Michaela. Simone just said, well, I think we're pretty talented. And then people went after Michaela.
So this is what I think Michaela needs to do. I think she just needs to shut off her Instagram for a while. Just stay away.
Yeah.
Lay low.
It
will pass. But the more you talk about it, the worse it's getting.
The legs won't die on this thing. So Michaela, our advice is shut up. just knock it off.
And just get off Instagram.
It's
not healthy. It's to an unhealthy point.
Exactly. Go take a 60-day sabbatical from Instagram. Hire a PR person to come back and redeem yourself.
It'll all be okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. Next story.
Oh, I've got the next one. This was a fun one. This was out of the UK.
We're going to actually move on from Olympics.
We are. We do have some other stories. This was out of the UK. A reporter in the UK wrote a little write-up on what's Mormonism really about. Now, this is not the reporter from the UK that wrote about the trad wife trend.
Yes.
About Ballerina Farm.
She did not write about Ballerina Farm.
But she mentioned that in her article.
She did.
So she just mentioned that, you know, she sees missionaries all the time and that like they invite her to go to church. And one day she decided she was going to do it because she wanted to find out what this was all about. She said she really didn't know much about our church other than like the Book of Mormon, you know, musical. And she said, you know, that displays us as, you know, naive and
it's not the most flattering portrayal of us.
So
I have never seen it. That's just what I have heard.
She interviewed someone that lives over there named Jonathan Mace, who is a longtime member of the church. He is involved in theater over there in the UK. And so she interviewed him about his take on Mormonism and growing up in the faith. And then she did actually attend church there, the Ward in London. To get a feel for what it was all about. And I thought it was a fun and interesting write-up. Her perspective as someone out of the country who is not very familiar at all with the church and like what she thought. It was interesting just to hear her take on it. And she talked about, you know, what we believe, you know, we don't drink coffee or tea.
She myth busted. She said, you know, a lot of my friends, when I ask them about Mormonism, would say, oh, well, don't they do this and don't they do that? And so she myth busted like polygamy.
She kind of said, no, polygamy is not a thing anymore. But yes, it's true. They don't drink coffee or tea.
Yeah.
Anyway, she talked about when she went to church, the Relief Society, about how she seemed to really enjoy that experience in Relief Society, the group of women. She talked about how multicultural the ward there was in London, like how diverse it was in perspectives and members from all over the world, which we've heard before. The international crew talks about how diverse it is over there. And she talked about a Relief Society and how much warmth there was in the room and how the women were able to share their experiences with each other. And she kind of compared it to like going to a counselor, but they are each other's therapists.
Well, and she said, and I really liked this because I never thought about this before, that one of the superpowers that we have as members of the church is community.
Yeah, she did. And she said she interviewed one of the sisters there, had mentioned that like when she first moved to London, she just automatically had this community of sisters and who can go anywhere and have that. Anyways, she at the very end, she talked about, you know, how she said many of us have a force that speaks to us without words. So why are we so judgmental about the Latter-day Saints? And she just talked about how, like, you know, when she was a youth, she was like drinking and doing drugs, but we're so judgy of
people who don't.
Church people who don't. Anyway, it was a very positive write-up.
It was.
It was very nice. And the guy she interviewed from the theater, Jonathan, he said the quote she gave from him was, "Even if it is all a load of tosh, I would still feel like this was the right way to live, to be self-reflective, to care about others, to believe in self-betterment. There's just no negative aspect to me in living a faithful life." I thought that was a really good quote. And I liked that she ended her article with that perspective. Anyway, it was a good write-up.
It was a great write-up. Mm-hmm. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yes.
All right, we have some sad news. We have a full-time sister missionary in Haiti who unexpectedly died. She was from Haiti, so she died in her home country. Her name was Jenny Lucas. She was 26. They believe it was from a sudden complication related to a pre-existing medical condition. So, always sad. We send our prayers and our love to her family. Don't like it when that happens, but sadly it does.
Yeah. Okay, next story is we have a...
Oh, nope, I got the next
story.
You have
another one.
We got the story about the Kamala Harris and the Mormons.
Right, I forgot. This is an interesting one.
This is an interesting story. So, there was a Zoom call that happened this last Tuesday. And the Zoom call was like, I don't know what it was entitled, like Mormons for Harris or something like that. They had invited anybody who was a member of the church and interested in supporting Kamala Harris to come on this particular Zoom call. Now, neither one of us participated in the Zoom call, but don't you worry, there was a whole big write-up about it.
I know. I was glad that they wrote it up because I was curious.
Yes. And so the title of the article is LDS Church Members May Be a Substantial Force in the Potential Outcomes in Deeply Red Utah and Battleground State Arizona. Now, I don't think that
Utah's not going to flip.
Utah's not going to flip.
But there was the most interesting statistic in there. They said in 2020, 1 in 3 Latter-day Saints voted for Biden.
Yes.
And that was like much higher than what I would have expected.
Exactly.
Didn't you think?
I thought so too. And that in 2020, they flipped 4 precincts to blue in Provo.
That was also shocking.
That was shocking.
I didn't know that was possible.
I didn't know that was possible either. Anyway. And they said that the Biden-Harris ticket in 2020 was the best of any Democratic ticket since 1964. So that was very interesting. So again, I don't think it's going to make, in the eventual outcome in Utah, is probably not going to flip anything. But there are a lot of members who live in Arizona, and Arizona is definitely what we call a purple state. It can go red, it can go blue. And so they are working on trying to organize members down there. But they were very careful on the telephone call to say, do not use ward or stake membership lists when reaching out to people because that violates the church's policy on neutrality.
Yes.
But what they did say is they said, share on social media how you're feeling. This actually does make a big difference. So I thought that was very interesting. It will... I think especially in Arizona, and I think there'll probably be a lot of analysis on this as it gets closer to the election and definitely after the election. What sort of a role did voters who were members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints play in whatever the outcome is in Arizona?
Yeah, I can't wait to see those statistics. Yeah. And I'm really curious about the Utah stats.
Yes.
Will that 1 in 3 hold steady? Yes. Will it increase?
Or will it decrease?
It'll be interesting to see.
We do not know. So, very interesting article. Okay, now you can move on to your next one.
Next article is about a new Angel Moroni statue for the temple in Star Valley, Wyoming. The Angel Moroni got struck by lightning several months ago. It blackened part of the backside of it. So they, this week, got a crane up there, removed it, replaced it with a new one. So our question was, what do they do with the burned Angel Moroni? Do they refurbish it? I'm guessing they refurbish it.
I would guess they refurbish it too. I really want somebody to do a deep dive. They've already put the Angel Moroni back on the Salt Lake Temple. But and maybe there's an article out there and we just need to go searching for it. I would like somebody to do a deep dive on where do they make these angel Moronis?
What warehouse are they sitting in?
What warehouse are they sitting in Salt Lake? Who makes them? And yeah, because obviously this is probably not the first temple that's had an angel Moroni that's been struck by lightning.
Oh no.
In fact, when they redid the Boise temple, I remember they took the angel Moroni down, and they had bullet dings in him. They had lightning strikes.
Oh,
I mean,
he was pretty beaten up.
He was pretty beaten up when they took him down.
Oh dear.
And so I can't help but think they got to have a rehab place for angel Moroni.
Yes.
So I want somebody to tell me where the rehab is for angels.
They need to do one of those
damaged angels.
One of those in between conference videos.
Yes.
All about the angel Moroni,
yes,
warehouse.
Carol Makita, if you listen to our podcast, which I highly doubt you do, but if anybody has friends of Carol Makita who listen to our podcast, do that.
We want it.
We want it.
The people have spoken.
The people have spoken.
The sisters have spoken.
Where do angel Moronis go to get rehabbed? Or do they get rehabbed, or do they just get melted down and remolded?
Yeah,
I don't know.
We need to know that.
We need to know.
All right. Let's see. What's next?
The next one is the CES one.
Oh,
and
right.
This is our last story before we head into favorite things. We won't spend a ton of time on this one. There was a new article that came out this week, and it was by Michael W. Peterson and Jacob Z. Hess regarding the CES letter. And you may remember the CES letter came out, I don't know, 10, 12, 13 years ago? It was a long time ago.
At least 10, I feel like.
So it came out, and purportedly the author was a gentleman by the name of Jeremy Reynolds, which I believe he was the author, but he wrote it in a manner like, I've got all these questions, Mr. CES person, will you answer all these questions for me? And there were a lot of questions that people who have had doubts have legitimately asked. And the letter was purported that these were legitimate questions he's asked. It has since then, not only by these guys, but by a lot of other people, been debunked that Jeremy Reynolds had a lot of questioning and a lot of suspect behavior before that letter came out. And maybe that letter was not as sincere as he was trying to portray himself to be, which again, that came out in this kind of study that Michael Peterson and Jacob Hess did. I didn't find it to really be old news because it's been talked about a lot.
Right.
But
no, I thought this was kind of a non-news story too, because also part of me is like, why does it matter? The letter asked questions that are pretty common.
Yeah.
Maybe it was one of the first, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like maybe it was one of the first like major online things to do that, but like the questions in the letter are pretty common questions
that a lot of people have
come up all the time. So I'm like, why does it matter if it was from a faithful member or not faithful member?
Yeah.
The questions were asked and answered or attempted to answer.
Well, and I think Jeremy Reynolds was saying he never received an answer, and that was one of the beefs that Peterson and Hess had. Is he says here is the letter and never gives anybody any time to answer before he goes and starts berating the church.
Puts it online, yeah.
But since then, there have been a lot of responses to the CES letter that have had very thoughtful responses to answers to those questions. But yeah, they are questions that people like, have had.
They're legitimate questions, and they're questions that have been around for a long time. So it's, I don't know.
Anyway, kind of interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now this is the time in the show when we do a Mormons behaving badly. But again, my best Mormon behaving badly this was Michaela Skinner this week, who I was like, Michaela, please just let it die. Let it lie like a rug.
Yeah, I know. The Mormons have been pretty good this summer.
They've been pretty good this summer. So
that's good.
I don't know if that means we're in for a rough and tumble fall, or
they do come in spurts.
They do come in spurts.
So, you know.
All right, so shall we move on to favorite things?
Yes, my favorite thing is also Olympic related, since we seem to have a theme going here.
Yay!
It is a documentary on Netflix called Simone Biles Rising. Have you watched this?
I have not, but I've heard about it.
It is so good.
Okay.
So it's there are 2 parts out now.
Okay.
So watch the 2 parts now. They are releasing 2 more parts after the Olympics. This fall that will be filmed. So the first 2 parts kind of take
like lead up to the Olympics.
Right. It kind of takes you through what happened, 4 years ago, and from her perspective, and it kind of takes you through the time since then, what she has done at home, and her training and her mental health, and just from her own perspective, like how she got from there to where she is now. And it takes you all the way up to Olympic trials.
Okay.
And that's where it stops. So in this next 2 parts, we will probably get Olympic trials
and Olympics,
and then like the post Olympic interview with her. But it was just really good. Just lots of info. I mean, we all know a lot about Simone Biles, but this was fun to hear from her perspective. And
is it something your kids can watch?
Is it kid friendly? We watched it with our kids.
Okay.
I do think there are maybe a few swear words.
Okay.
But we watched it with our teenagers.
Got it. Okay.
So yeah, it was really good. Also hilarious. You have to watch the reporter that interviews her. They played some clips of the reporter that interviews her during the Olympics. I don't know. Did you watch any of the Olympic coverage? Simone is sitting on a couch, and there's a blonde reporter that's
okay. Are you talking the Olympics 4 years ago?
No, right now.
Oh, okay.
They played some clips from this documentary in the Olympic package.
Okay.
That they played on TV this year in Paris.
Okay, I did not see that.
They pulled some clips from the documentary, and the interviewer that interviews her, she's a blonde girl. I should have written down I should have looked up her name, but she has
Is she the blonde girl with the British accent? NBC has a blonde girl with a British accent that's co-hosting during the day.
I don't think she has a British accent.
Sorry.
I don't think that's her.
Didn't mean to derail you there.
I don't think that's her, but her facial expressions are like,
oh, dang.
Dynamite.
Oh, gosh.
My girls had like the most fun, like gently mocking her, like when she's interviewing Simone and Simone is telling her about a hard time, she goes, "Oh, Simone," and her facial expressions are just like, she looks like she's gonna cry, and like she's a good interviewer, but like she's very emotionally involved.
Oh gosh.
So watch for that. It's also entertaining.
So that's in the documentary.
That's in the documentary.
Okay.
So she interviews
So this
her.
wasn't a current interview that they did this time around.
No, it was leading up to the Olympics.
Okay.
So
okay.
Anyway, and then watch for part 3 and 4 coming out in the fall. It was very good.
I will.
Okay.
All right. So
what's your favorite thing?
My favorite thing is a shoe.
Oh.
So let me take off my shoe that I'm wearing so that I can hold it up on the camera here. This is my lovely Birkenstock. It is the big buckle Birkenstock. You can see that the buckles are bigger.
This is a real Birkenstock.
This is a real Birkenstock. This is not a fakey fake.
I'm noticing the name.
So I have never been. I mean, I haven't hated Birkenstocks, but I haven't really worn them a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I bought these big buckle ones at the beginning of the summer, and I freaking absolutely love the big buckle Birkenstocks.
Okay,
I like the big. The other ones just I'm like, yeah, they're really not that cute, but the big buckle are adorable.
Those are cute.
So these have been my summer shoes. Mm-hmm. Well, as you know, it is August, and we are heading into fall.
Yes,
and so probably the Arizona, which is the style of the Birkenstock I just showed you, very traditional looking Birkenstock, is really not going to work for fall. I mean, I can wear socks with it. I get that, but I need a better option.
Okay.
So I found my fall Birkenstock option.
Okay.
And I brought it tonight.
I need to see.
And you have not even seen it yet.
No, I have not seen. I did not know you were on the hunt for a fall Birkenstock option.
Well, okay, so it's August, and whenever August hits, I start jonesing for fall. Like, I'm looking around my house, and I'm like, I've still got all my patriotic decor up that's been up since the beginning of May. That's my summer decor, and I'm jonesing to get my fall stuff up.
I am too, because the air is smoky, and the weather is hot, and the children are cranky.
Exactly.
And my floors are sticky, so I'm ready for fall.
You're done. But I will not take it down till Labor Day. I'm a traditionalist in that regard. Labor Day weekend, it will come down. But because I can't really change my decor out now, I start thinking about, well, what wardrobe do I want for the fall? And what additions to my wardrobe do I need to make in the fall?
All right, let me see these shoes.
These are the shoes I picked.
Oh my gosh. I had these shoes in high school. I'm not kidding.
Are you kidding? They are a Boston.
These were wildly popular when I was in high school and college, my early college years.
They are a Boston with a platform. And
those are high school. I wore them with overalls. Also, they are super back in.
They are super back in.
My girls have been wanting these.
Oh, yes. My teenage daughter has a Boston, but she has just the regular Boston, not the platform.
Okay.
Girlfriend right here is short Never met a platform I don't like. So I'm super excited. So the platform is black. They're a brown suede, a kind of a chocolatey brown suede. And so I'm like, oh, with a wool sock and leggings or with my jeans, I will be rocking the retro 90s styling. And I have to say, even though I'm a child of the 90s, I really rocked.
Child of the 70s.
Well, I'm a child of the 70s, a teenager of the 80s, a young adult of the 90s. If I had to pick my fashion choices for all three, I love late 60s, early 70s dresses. But I love a bunch of the stuff from the 90s that's back right now.
I did not
know. All the puffy sleeves.
I do love the puff sleeves.
Yeah.
I have mixed feelings because it was like my end of high school, early college days. And so there's some things I'm very happy to see come back, like the flare jeans. And there are other things where I'm like, I cannot. You know what? I just cannot.
What can you not?
The denim cargo skirts that are super long. So I was an EFY counselor.
Yes, and you wore a ton of those.
And that was my uniform all summer, like the khaki long skirts and the khaki denim skirts.
Yes.
And t-shirts. And when I see them, I'm like, I can't do it. I cannot.
I can fully appreciate that.
But I'm here for the overalls. I was a big overall person, and those are cute.
These are, yes.
I could get on board with those.
I'm loving these.
Those
I'm super excited about these.
And the Doc Martens coming back in. I'm okay with that.
Yes. And I still have some Doc Martens from the 90s that I saved that I love.
Aren't you glad you saved them?
I am so glad I saved them because there's nothing out there like them today, and they're clearly Doc Martens. But here's an interesting thing. So we had a resurgence of 70s, late 60s, early 70s style. And then it's kind of like it skipped over the 80s because all of the awful things that I wore as a teenager in the 80s that I would be mortified to wear again, kind of like your cargo skirt.
You haven't had to see them in stores.
I have not had to see them in stores. I have not had to see a resurgence of that. We skipped the 80s and we went right to the 90s.
Isn't that interesting?
Honestly, I think that was a really good choice because there was. I look at my 80s pictures, and for the 80s, I was, of course, completely styling, but it's so cringy now. I'm like, I couldn't at all. Yeah. But I look at what I wore in the 90s, and I'm like, oh, I could do that again easily. Like the pleated skirts that are in right now.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I had tons of pleated skirts when I was a freshly minted lawyer. I had cute little pleated skirts with blazers that I wore to court all the time. I was sharp.
Oh, it's so funny. Everything comes back eventually.
It really does. All right. Well, this has just been such a fun episode tonight. We've had a blast.
I'm excited to watch that marathon in the morning.
I know.
I'm not staying up till midnight, but I will watch it in the morning.
Well, I may watch a bit of it until I fall asleep. But we know that the first 20 miles are going to be boring because Ed Eyestone told us.
He told him to just chill.
He told him to just chill.
They're going to be chilling.
Chill, cover, and what was the third one? Chill, cover, and close. Yeah. That's what it was. Anyway, so yeah. But you want to stick around and do a little bit of a Patreon episode with us?
Yes. We are going to talk a little bit on Patreon about Ballerina Farm. The siblings talked about it last week, but it is like the story that will not die.
Oh, because legs.
Since they talked about it, there's been like 3 or 4 more articles.
I know.
It just keeps going.
And if you've ever seen her, she has long legs. And let me tell you, this story has legs as long as hers.
Yes, it does.
So we're going to do a little more analysis on Ballerina Farm in our Patreon episode. So listeners, thank you very much for joining us tonight. We had a blast. We hope you did too. If you have any comments, you can reach out to us at contact@thisweekinmormons.com. You can find us on the Instagram. We will update the Twin Sisters Instagram with our favorite things.
Yes.
And you can also find us on Facebook. I don't think anybody's doing the Twitter these days or managing our Twitter feed, but we're throwing up a bunch of stories on the Facebook. So go old school, get on Facebook, read what stories were.
If you dare, it is an election year, so that's risky.
That is risky. That's very true. And as always, if you really want to be a great supporter, please get onto Patreon, throw a couple bucks a month at us. We would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for listening.